Well, check this out. The town of Sallisaw, Oklahoma is dealing with flash flooding today as heavy rains fall in the area. As you can see in the video, flooding covered streets and yards. The city sent out an alert warning of a severe flooding and urging residents to stay in safe places until it passes. Local reports say people had to evacuate from their homes and an emergency shelter is in operation. The National Weather Service in Tulsa issued a flash flood warning earlier today after 4 to 7 inches of rain fell in the area. That is a lot.
Yeah, a lot of flooding concerns this week. Tropical depression Chantal brought heavy rain, flash flooding, and tornado warnings to parts of North Carolina. Governor Josh Stein visited one of the areas hit hard to survey the storm damage. He says a few people were killed in the storm, but he didn't have the exact number.
The heartbreak that families across the Piedmont are experiencing this week. I know one of the victim's sons very well, and their pain is pain that we would wish on no one. So let's all do everything we can to take care over the next few days to make sure that no one else in North Carolina experiences a loss of life to this storm.
Stein said that the impact of the storm could have been much worse if not for the work of first responders and city engineers who installed spillways to minimize the damage some of these kinds of weather events can cause.
Yeah, it's pretty wild that water we were talking about during the break can rise so quickly in those areas.
It really can, and fortunately we haven't been dealing with a lot of that here locally, but we've kind of had a wet forecast, so let's take a look at the 15-day and see if that'll be sticking around. And it does look like we turn a bit unsettled again as we roll towards the end of the week and weekend, back into a multi-day storm potential, but you know the drill. It's not going to rain all day every day, but really from Friday through early next week, storm chances before maybe a bit of a pattern change for the middle and end of the month that could have some warmer weather and maybe a little bit of some drying out too, perhaps several days of dry weather. We'll keep an eye on that.
All right,
stick with us. We'll be right back.